So today we're going to continue with the with the React hooks. So before we go back and describe what useContext is, and remember that useContext was what we used to hold on, let me close all of these. useContext was what we used to have like a global state, like this create context, and we used it with the useContext hook. So before we move on to that, did anybody have any questions about useReducer? This is what we went over the last class, like any like doubts or like anything at all on that, or
No,
or any hook at all. Go ahead.
yeah, I think it was similar to, like you said, like the use state, where it takes, the actual state, which could be a function, like your reducer is the actual function to make a change to the state, and then it takes an initial state, which in this case you could do a variable, but you decided to do an object for the initial state, right?
Right, exactly. So yeah, it's the exact same. Yep. And then this dispatch, obviously, it fires, then it runs inside of this function. So yeah, just like you were saying, is used to change the state. All right. So the reason, the reason this is so useful is because of something called Redux. It's something that you should know because it's something called Redux. Redux is actually, I'll explain what that is after we go through this, because I want y'all to like understand this concept, and then I'll tell you what the concept of Redux is. But so we'll continue this. So just a quick recap, just to repeat it again. useReducer is used to store state in your components. It has two parameters, just like the use state hook. We have the state as the first one, and we have a function to be used to set the state. The difference is useReducer uses an actual reducer function, a function up here, to do some logic to actually manipulate the state. And obviously we can put the initial state here. And just to recap, whenever we did, call this dispatch method, we passed it a type and a payload. And that type and payload was referenced inside of the reducer function. So we passed the switch statement, we did the action.type, and we're checking the type to see like what action we're trying to do. So we were incrementing or decrementing or like setting the name. And depending on like what action we see here, we do different things inside of this return object here. So what I'm gonna do now, I'm going to slim down this code a little bit more, because I see that we're repeating ourselves for here. Like we're literally just returning the state and like something else or whatever. Like even here, we're returning the state plus like something else. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a function here. The name of this one is reducer. I'm going to create a reduce function, so singular. This reduce function is going to do exactly what it's going to return an object. Remember, with arrow functions, let me actually do this real quick so we can see how we get this return object. With arrow functions, we can, if we have one thing here, if we're just returning an object, we can, let me just do reducer too, so don't give us error. When we're just returning one thing, we don't need this return keyword. And if we don't have that return keyword, so we don't need this return keyword, right? I'm gonna get rid of these brackets as well. And if we don't use the return keyword and we're returning an object, you wanna wrap that in parentheses like this. So this is essentially the format of like returning a function from an arrow function. I mean, returning an object from an arrow function. So that's what that is. So this reduce is basically going to do exactly what this does. By putting this inside of this reduce, we're gonna like limit, we're gonna like, we're gonna slim down our code a little bit. Right now, this use reducer is, was it line 17 to like line line 38, was at like let me see, was that like 20, no, not 20, yeah. So that's so 1 and then 10, 10, 22 lines or something like that, 21 lines. We're gonna reduce that down to like, we're gonna make it more slimmer. So what I'm gonna do is whenever we call this reduce function, we're gonna pass it the state and we're gonna pass it the payload. And so we're gonna pass it the state, we're gonna pass it the field, and we're gonna pass it the payload. So in here, we always did the exact same thing. We destructured the well, we're using the spread operator to put the state inside of it, and then we're gonna reference some field here, and then we're gonna set it to some value, and I'll just name this value actually. So this code is going to do the exact same thing on each of these. So now all I have to do is call reducer. I got to pass in the state. I pass in the field, which is count. I have to pass that in as a string. And I pass in the value to set it to. So this here. So this line does exactly the same thing as it did before. Any questions on this? Because I do see like something here that I may or may not have explained yet. All right, cool. So just to point out what I was referencing this here, this field here. The reason this field is inside of brackets is because we can pass in, like, let me put these next to each other just in case there was questions behind this. Like if this can be two different ways. What was that count? Yeah, it was a count. So this and this is the exact same thing. That's literally the exact same code. We can either pass the field in as like regular like this, or we can pass it in as a string. But if we pass it in as a string, we have to surround it with these square brackets.
And is that like another form of destructuring?
Not destructuring, but I would say another way to set like a key value pair inside of an object. Like this is an object, and the key, like let's not even look at this here. Like these two are exactly the same. This is basically what I want to point out. We can do count equals whatever, or count equals this. Like these two, like if this was A and this was B, these two would have the exact same keys and values. It's just two different ways of setting it up.
Got it. Thanks.
And I'm using this way to do it because I mean we're passing it in the field as like, you know, a string, and it's just convenient to like dynamically set a key inside of an object. That's basically what we did there. So I'm gonna do the same thing for the rest of these lines. I'm gonna do this. We pass in state, we pass in the key, which is count, and we pass in the value, which is this here. So paste that in. I'm gonna delete this. And I'm gonna do the same thing again here. The key is gonna be name, and the value is gonna be action.payload.name. This is just a pattern. Like this is not something that's like required, but it's a pattern to slim up your code. Now, I mean, we went from line 17 to 38. Now look how slim that is. And that's because we're using a helper function. That's basically what that is. It is a function to help us reduce our code. This is a lot more readable than it was before. We increment and then we reduce it. We pass it the state, we pass it the key, and we pass it the value.
Definitely cleaner and more readable.
A lot more cleaner. So another thing I want to show you, let me start this up actually, because I'm showing y'all this because like I want y'all to have like advantages over other people. when people set this up, they're not going to like create this reduce function. They're not going to like create, they're just going to leave it how we had it before. They're not going to create this action creator function that does the exact same thing that they were doing before, but it slims down the code. Like this type of like coding, it separates you from like people that just know how to put the syntax together. It makes you like more of a pro, I would say, more of like a seasoned coder. So yeah, just something to know. Let me make sure that this still works. So we subtract, and we can, this was changing uh, with a random thing inside of that array. It was me, myself, and I. So that works. Something else I want to show y'all that not every developer know about is, so right now we're doing console log, right? Every time we do one of these, hold on. Yeah, we're logging the payload. There's no payload here, but here we have a payload. It's me, myself, I, right? What I want to do, instead of logging all of this, I want to set up this app to track all of my changes. Like I should be able to see that some action was called, and like I should be able to see the payload. I should be able to see that the action here inside of the terminal. I can do that two different ways. I'm gonna show y'all one way, then I'm gonna show y'all another one. It's something that looks a little bit better, and it's probably gonna it's something new that I'm not even sure if I even taught basically. But so I'm gonna pass in the type, and I'm passing the payload here. So with this, if I press this add button, we can see increment and we can see undefined, because there is no payload here. But we at least know, like from the console, what action was being called, like what action is affecting the current state of your app. If I press this, we can see set name was called, and we can see the payload here. Let's take this a step further. Actually, yeah, let's leave this right here, right? So another way we can do display this exact same information is with console.table. Now, I'm not even sure if I even taught this. Console.table. Instead of seeing it like this, we're going to see it in table format. So console.table takes either an array or it takes an object, and I'm gonna use the object version of this, and I'll show you what the I'll use the array first, and then I'll do the object just to show you the difference. So I'm passing in an array that has the action type in it and the action payload inside of it. Let me save this, and I'm gonna press increment here. We can see that the first one, logged here, but this is how the table looks. Now we're starting to see like this information organized in the console. And obviously, this is fine, but this table looks better because it's more organized. And when we pass in an array, we can see that the table has a certain format. We have the index and we have the actual values here. What I had logged was the type first. The type is at index 0, and the payload second. The payload is at index 1 inside of the array here. That's one way to log to this table. The other way to log to this table is to use an object, and I recommend using an object because it's more descriptive. So I'm gonna use an object here. The key is going to be type here. The value is going to be action.type. The key for this one is going to be payload. The value is going to be action.payload. It's an object. Thanks. Wait, here. All right, cool. So now we have an object. Now we're going to see a difference. So if I press this now we can see that instead of like saying 1 is 0, 1, it's saying type here. Okay, this is much more descriptive. The type is increment and the payload is undefined. And we're also able to click on this object to see the exact object that was printed out. Okay, payload undefined, type is increment. So let me clear this and click myself so we can see like this a little bit different. The type is set name. The payload is myself. We have name and then myself. And obviously we can click on this to like organize this table as well, but we can also, go in and see exactly like what's here or whatever. We know that the type is an object because we have like name right here, and name is like myself. This one, let me see. This one was just a value. Like this is not an object here. It's just a value, which is just set name right there. That's why the table looks slightly different than the other one. But either way, this is just another tool you can use, this console.tables, to like sort of structure some of the logging that you do in the console.
Oh yeah, that's like a really slick way to debug, and it'd be a lot easier, especially if you're tracking like an array and you're trying to figure out why you're off by 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever. That's pretty slick.
Right, right. So I'm gonna use this, and I'm gonna keep that. I'm gonna remove this one. I'm gonna keep console.table because I feel like that's like really good. So those are the improvements I wanted to make to the code. Now I'm going to tie this useReducer to the useContext again. Well, not again, but I'm gonna tie it together. So just to quickly explain this context again, the very first thing you have to do whenever you're setting up this context, one of the things that's optional, or like just more so like just organizational, I created a context folder just so I can hold like all of the context like stuff inside of the folder. What I should also put inside of this folder, I'm just going to organize this a little bit before I start teaching it. I'm going to put the reducer inside of here. That reducer is here. I don't want this inside of this folder. I mean, inside of this file. I want app to only reference this function. So I'm going to put this inside of this reducer.js, and I'll just do an export const reducer. So inside of app, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna import it. This is me like separating all of my state related code to be an exact same folder. Just me getting organized. So I'm gonna import reducer from so up a folder. Is it up now? I think it's on the same level. Yeah. So
Don't you have to export defaulted?
yeah.
Don't you have to export default at least one component? And doesn't it have to be like a capital R? Is that a lowercase?
Yeah, it's lowercase because this is just a regular JavaScript file, and we don't have to export default. Yeah, that's optional.
Okay.
Yeah, but if
Because
we
it's a function, not a component, right? That's what you're saying?
exactly,
Oh.
yeah, exactly, yeah. You want to export default those components.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if I did do an export, let me just check this, make sure this still works really quick. Actions is not defined. Okay, so now I need to move these actions inside of its own file, because right now reducer is referencing actions here. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a file named actions.js. I'm gonna put that inside of here. I'm gonna export it. So now we got our actions, we have our context, and we have a reducer. And let me import that into this. Let me save this first. And I'm gonna import that into here. So import actions from actions. Save this. I think it's still going to be undefined over here because I'm using actions. Yeah, I'm using actions here. That's probably what it's going to say. Actions is not defined. Yeah. So let me define it here. I'm gonna bring it in. So import actions into app.js from context actions. And save that, and I feel like this should, let me see, reducer is not defined. and import the reducer as well. Wait, hold on. Reducer is not defined. Line.
Oh, reduce the line 9 through 12, I believe.
This.
Does that need to be in a reducer file?
Oh
The
yeah,
reduce-
yeah, yeah. You're right. You're right. Let me put that inside of reducer here. Yep. Format this. Save that. Perfect. Thank you. So this still works. Okay, cool. So to answer your question, Jay, let me see if I can export default this really quick because I want to actually actions. I'm gonna test something out. This export default thing. 'Cause I think you should be able to export default like a regular variable as well. So export default const, like I don't know, person. So let's say like me or something like that. Export default. I guess we can't have that. But let me see. So this is in actions. If I don't have any actions, person is not defined. 7 person is not defined.
But I think you have to do like the const person equals me on, yeah.
Right. Person me. Say that. Okay, cool. So let me try to bring this into app just to test this out. When we do the export default, we want to just import it like this instead of putting it inside of this here. If I do a console log person here, let me see if that, yeah, me. Okay, yeah. So we can export default anything, but we don't have to. It's just optional. That was just me testing it out because I honestly forgot. But yeah, when we export default, we do it like that. Let me put
No,
this.
that actually helps quite a bit. Thank you.
Mhm. All right, cool. So, all right, so in our context folder, back to context, we have actions, we have context, we have reducer here. So this create context is how we, just to recap, this create context is how we initialize a global state. We're using create context to say, okay, every component inside of this React app has access to this global state. I just named it global state. So I'm going to export a constant as a global state, and I'm calling this create context on it. And again, it just creates a global variable for everybody, for every component to use. Now, in order to use this global state, you have to bring it into a component. So if I do, say, let me actually, yeah, in order to bring that in, we would have to something like this. We would have to say, let's see, const, we would do, let's see, do context equals, let me import it first before anything. I'm going to import create context first.
Oh,
Let me delete this.
I was gonna say you did import global state already
Did I already?
on line 5.
Oh yeah, thank you. All right, cool. So I imported it here. So now, in order for me to use it, I have to use the useReducer. I mean the use context hook. So use context here, and inside of that, I have to pass it the actual global context to reference. So what this does is it gives us access to now all of the global variables in like the app that we're actually using. What is this? What did I do here? Let me just change this. I'm not even sure. times. Oh wait, that's here. That's why. Yeah. All right, cool. All right. Either way, we have the context now. So inside of let me see. Inside of now that we have context, um, we have to import it inside of app. We have to import it inside of app for a reason, because now that app has access to the global context. Now we have to give access to all of the other components, this global context. And the way we do that, and I'm going to actually make this a capital letter because this is actually an object. The way we do that is we wrap the entire app in context dot provider. Why is this not auto completing for me? I might have messed something up. Let me do a quick search of this. I'm pretty sure I messed something up since it didn't auto complete. But yeah, there's something wrong here. W3 school context. You know, something I always have to, well, not always, but like definitely have to look up. Let me see. So we created a context here. Okay, cool. And user, oh wait, yeah, that's why I did this wrong. I did this wrong. That's erase all of the stuff I just told y'all for now. I'm going to import the context that we just created inside of context.jsx. I imported that. That context has to wrap the entire app. So so this variable that we imported, so global state dot provider is a function. You can see it if I do dot. So provider is a function. So now the rest of the app, which lives inside of app.js, has access to the global state because we wrapped it inside of this component. Please stop me if anybody has questions on this stuff.
So I can put functions in there, correct? Or is it just for HTML elements?
Functions in here.
Yeah, in between my global state dot provider, in between my
Right. Yeah, you can. So before we had built a few like components, like left and left side was one of the components, and that is inside of here. This left side component right here. Like now, all of the components inside of it has access. Inside of this has access to global state. So this is how we'll really use it. So let me actually. I'm gonna
And
leave.
global state is just a name you gave it. That's just a naming convention. It could be named anything, right?
Right. And I should actually let me stick to what they're doing here, because this is actually, I trust this to be convention. So I'm gonna call it user context instead, and I'm going to import it user context, and I'm gonna use user context dot provider. That's how I'm going to do it. But it's the global state. Thanks for that. So I'm a so I put in left side here. Right. So let's go back to this. State was not found. Left JS. Okay. That's fine. Yeah. I called it global state before. Now I gotta rename it. Inside of all the components that's using it. Let me actually do that now. That's not using it. This one's not good. Here we go. Where is it? So, can I read? Okay. It's trying to reference something I built before. Let me just comment this out. Where is it? Where is it? I think it's just like the left side. Yeah, here it is. So I'm getting an error because I brought left side into the app, and left side has left inside of it. And left is trying to use the context here. Let me actually comment this out for now. I think that should fix it. I'm actually just going to delete this. I don't have time to like try to fix that. Let's just remove left altogether. Why is it still is not defined? Oh, I imported it here. Let me delete that. Okay. Um, gotta remove every reference to left in this component. So left. One more. Let me clean this up. Left is here. Why is this? Let me just delete that completely. Delete. Move to trash. Refresh. Okay, I feel like something's wrong with this app. Let me restart this. Sometimes like this thing is stuck in a weird loop. I want to make sure it's not that. So do npm start. Let me actually remove this component as well. And let's see, what else don't we need? Let me just leave it like that. Okay, I think we're good now. Okay, cool. So let me just to simplify things, I'm going to delete this right here because we don't really need that. I just want to point out how to use this global state right here. So to recap again, we created context. Oh, let me delete some of this. We set it up here inside of this context folder, and then we brought this global context into app, and then we're using useContext.provider. Now, right now there's no variables, there's no values inside of the actual global state. In order for us to give this some type of global state, we want to give it a value. We want to give it a value property here, and we want to set it equal to something. If I set this equal to like hi, for example, let's say like if I just do hi, literally the global state just has a variable, a string in it that says hi. But what I want to do is I want to give the global state some type of object. And this object, I'm gonna just name it global. I'm gonna give this object a reducer. Let me see. No, I'm gonna give it not a reducer. I'm gonna give it state, and I'm gonna give it dispatch. And again, this is just a key value. This is a shortcut to do key values. The key is state, the value is state. The key is dispatch, the value is dispatch. So, and I'm gonna put that inside of here. I'm gonna save it like that. Now, this whole app has access to this state that I defined here inside of useReducer, and it has access to this dispatch function that I have inside of the reducer. And I'm gonna show you how that looks. I'm gonna show you that that's actually inside of the state. I don't know if y'all already did but download the React extension in Chrome, but you'll have to download it. And if I click on this, let me see. Let me do a refresh, make sure everything is fine. Yeah. Reducer provider. Okay, yeah. If I click here, context provider, I can see that this is the state here. We have the dispatch and we have the state right here. And obviously, if I was to add to this, let's just say like name Isaiah or whatever, save that. Like this updates now. Now, name Isaiah is in global state, but we don't need that. All we need is like dispatch and state. So I'm gonna put that back how it was. It's gonna refresh. Dispatch and state is right here. Now that we have this inside of, and again, stop me if you have questions. Now that we have this object right here inside a global state, now we want to start to like reference the global state in other places if we needed like access to the global state somewhere else. What I'm gonna do is inside of I'm gonna move all of this stuff, all of these things, and I'll put that inside the left side. I'll put it here like this, and I'll actually move all of those functions over as well. To change name, decrement, increment. We put all of that stuff inside of. Actually, let me go back a little bit. Let's see. Trying to figure out the best way to. Yeah, I'm just gonna. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do that, and I'll put all of this inside of left side instead, like that. But I might have broke something. Yeah, I gotta put this as well inside of left side, just so we have access to that. I click anything. Dispatch is not defined. Okay, perfect. So now we have like everything here, right? Dispatch, as we saw before, was in global state. This component don't know what dispatch is. But now what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna start to use the global state so that we have access to dispatch inside of this left side component. In order to do that is by using using the use context hook. Use context allows us to put some global state variable inside of it. The global state variable that we're going to put inside of it is this user context right here. I'm gonna put that, I'm gonna import that in here. This is probably the wrong path actually. Put that here. Up another directory. Let's go inside of context, and it's inside of context here. So we put that in here, and since we know that the global state looks like this, we can destructure that out of global state here, like that. And just to take it a step back, just to show you where I'm getting this stuff from. If I was to say that this was my global state, I'm literally given the object inside of here, and I'm just destructuring it. Like what I had before and this is the exact same thing. Let me put them next to each other so that y'all can like see the difference. Or like just for comparison. Right here, use context gives me back a variable. That variable that it gives me back is whatever value we put inside of here, global. Let's just name it global because that's what was named before. It gives me back global. And global, I'm just destructuring the state and the dispatch method that we put, the dispatch method that we put inside of here, right there. So instead of doing it on 2 lines like this, I'm just gonna do it on 1 line. I'm gonna straight, bring in global, and I'm gonna just straight destructure it from there. I don't even have to put in a variable like that before I destructure it.
Okay, then you set up the global with the state and dispatch, and right now they're initiated, but they're not defined. They don't have a value yet. The state and dispatch from the global object I saw.
Or they do have values. The value for this is going to be here, whatever the value this one is, like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and the same for dispatch. The key is dispatch, and the value is whatever this gives you back. This useReducer.
Reducer. Okay.
Yep. So now, if let's see, here's the same. Let me zoom out a little bit. So left side, actions is not defined. Let me bring in actions. So import actions from go up. Let's go inside the context. Let's go inside the actions. Let me see if this fixed it. So now when I press this, it still works. All of this information is saved inside a global state. If I go here and I open this up and I go inside a state, we can see that, we can see that this is the state right now. If I click this, it changes to I. You can see I is here now. If I click this, it says myself, and myself changes here. If I press this plus button, we can see it increasing in state right here. If I press the minus button, we can see that it's decreasing in state right here. So now we have a place where we can see what the global state is, and we're able to reference the global state by bringing in the global state with this use context hook. So
it's just,
yeah.
A way, like you said, to kind of keep things more organized as well, because otherwise you'd have to define and everything inside of your app pretty much, and then inside of any of those components that are rendered within your app. So okay, I think that's, it sounds like to me that's like the main goal. Since it's global, I can access it anywhere, but then I can have separate files so that my code is much cleaner. And I can say, okay, well, here's our left side, here's where it's called, here's where it's referenced. And then here's the context where it's originating from, versus, the app file being really big and having a bunch of, code in it.
Right, exactly. So we're able to like slim everything down, put everything in organized, put everything in different files, just like you were saying, slim down this app component. So it does like very simple thing. This app literally just renders components instead of global state. That's all it does. And anytime you want to use the global state, you use it like this. You bring it in first, and then you use context, and you pass in the global state there, and you destructure out anything you need from the global state. And just to see this in action, a different way, I'm going to create another folder. I'll just name this test or whatever. I want to put that here. Yeah, okay. Let me create another component real quick, and I'll interact with the global state in this component, but I'll actually show the state inside of this component. Actually, I'll show it inside a test, and I'll interact with it inside of left side. This is just to show that you can mess with global state somewhere, and it affects it somewhere else. And it's to just be more like practice on it. So JSX, and I'm not even going to create a CSS file for that. I'll just say test. We'll return, well, first, actually, we'll return a div. Let me do this. Div, let's say test works. This is just for me to set this up and just bring it into app. So I'm going to import this into app. So we got to export default that. Export default const. Export default test. I think that should work like that too. This is another way to just do it straight. Like we can literally just straight export it. Over here, we defined it inside of a variable first, and then we exported it after. But you can just straight export it. Just export default test, just like that. I know my computer about to die. Let me quickly bring that in. So I'm going to import test here, like that, and I'm going to bring this into here. So let me just go over here. Test is not defined. Components, test. Test is here. It's for default test. The same test is not defined. Test.js. I think I might have messed something up. Export default. Actually, let me not even get fancy, because like I don't want to take away from what we're trying to learn. I'm just going to do it the same way I did last time. Export default. let's just do test here like this. I'm not sure why that wasn't working, but I don't want to debug that. So test
Maybe,
work. Yeah.
maybe you did just have to add that const when you did the export default. So export default and then const test in order to get it out.
It was giving me like an error or something like that. I'm not sure why. Yeah, it's giving me
No,
an
no,
error.
it'll still give you an okay.
Yeah, but there's a way to do it that way. But either way, like I don't want to take away from what we're trying to like learn.
I hear that.
Yeah, so I have tests here, right? Instead of displaying this number 6 in this side of this component, I'm gonna display this number 6 inside of test instead, and I'll interact with it inside of the other component here. Let me see, what percent am I on? 8%. Let me get my charger real quick. I'll be back.
So does anybody really got this like down? Because I'm low key, I'm a tad bit confused on the use context. Like the use reducer and stuff, all of those things seem kind of straightforward, but the use context is a little bit convoluted for me.
Yeah, I almost see it as like just like a reference point for any type of variables that you have within your app, so that you can use them globally. And then when you have your use context, of course, you got to import it, but then you got to call the use context. I guess what we call the function. So I guess the concept wise, I think I do understand it.
I'm just trying to understand like I guess the usage, the syntax, like I'm wrapping it around. So he got it wrapped around what he's returning from left side, what he's returning from left side. And then the value is placed inside of the context, it like component. And yeah, I'm probably gonna have to use it in order to really understand it. I think I'm gonna just sit back and enjoy the ride for now. I think that's what it's just gonna have to be. Just get some practice in, just like when I didn't know how to use for loops.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things where it's like it's a little odd because this is a pattern that we haven't seen before. And to tell you exactly what this is called higher order components. I don't even think I even told y'all like what the name of this is. But essentially what this does is it takes everything inside of it and then gives it some extra functionality. The only thing that the extra functionality that this thing is giving everything inside of it is to have access to the global state. We haven't created higher order components before, and it's because it's bad practice, to be honest. But like using it like this is accepted because this is the only way for us to like pass global state to everything. But that's
Essentially, it's like using var. It seems like,
mhm.
but I was gonna say it's a little more strict because you just can't access values straight from use context. I'm trying to make a parallel or something so I could kind of understand.
Yeah.
I don't I don't want you to waste too much class time just trying to, explain it to me.
Yeah. So what I'm gonna do is after I get this working or whatever, I'm gonna actually show you what a higher order component is. I'm gonna show you how to create one, and I feel like that might fill in the gaps. It may be like, okay, now I understand like what this thing is trying to do or whatever. But yeah, let me get this to work really quick. So inside of left side right now, we have those buttons here, and we have like the state.count. I want to move this state.count inside of test. I want to interact with it here inside of left side, and I want to use it inside of test. So I'm gonna put that here. Obviously, I gotta bring in I have to bring in the actual global state. I'm gonna get an error. So first, I do the same import as here. I'm just gonna do a copy and paste. I import it like this, and then I have to use this use context right here inside of the component. Let me bring this in as well. That is here. So We're using use context. We brought in the user context here, and we're using state.count. We're not even using dispatch inside of here. I'm just going to delete it. We don't even need it there. So if I go back here, 6 is inside of test right now. Literally, we can see if we hover over this is left side, it's just the buttons. And test, if we hover over that, we can see that that's the number 6. So me interacting with this button inside of left side is affecting test on the other side. It's just it's a very, very convenient way to tie state throughout your whole app and have different components change state for another app. So that's what this demonstration is.
When you say that, that's kind of like a way around not having to do the whole prop drilling thing.
Exactly. And if in the interview they ask you like about prop drilling, obviously you tell them what it is, but then you say I can use the use context hook to avoid prop drilling. They'll ask you how do you avoid prop drilling. This is what you'll say. You either use this or something called Redux, and that reminds me. But yeah, that's the answer to that. So just to quickly tell y'all, like, so this is like we on this side, like this, like y'all even saw that. I forgot how to what's it called it, like how to set this up. I had to go to W3 school. Now there's something called Redux, right? And the setup in Redux is the same concept. It gives some global state, but the setup for Redux is a lot more than this. We're not even going to set this up. Like we're not even going to do that today. We're not going to set Redux up in here because I have to go through the docs and try to figure out how to do it. And then we have to go through like a long like process. You got to set up a bunch of files and bring it into here and do something similar to this where you do something .provider and pass it a value, something like that. But there's a lot of setup there. The difference between use context and Redux, the other like global state management thing, is that use context is supposed to be used whenever you have like a little bit of state in your app. Like right now, we just have like, if we go here, we just have like 2 things in here. Like if we start, like there's apps where like this information can get like so much bigger than just 2 things. Like it'll have like 50 things in state, and then each key is like an array of like 100 things or whatever. So now your state is like, your global state is really is a really huge object. Whenever your global state becomes a huge object, this use context, it starts to have performance issues. Like if I press this button, it may take like a half second to update. Or if I press this button, it may take like, I don't know, 2 seconds to update. And it's because use context is only supposed to be used whenever you have a relatively small amount of state. Now, what that number is like, it really just depends on like your app. But if they ever ask you in an interview, like if you should use context or useReducer, you tell them we're going to use context up until we start to have performance issues. Whenever you start to notice you got performance issues, you can use the Redux state management. And literally Redux changes state the exact same way that that use context changes state. Remember, we was calling this dispatch method, and it was going inside of the reducer and doing those. It went inside of reducer and it did this switch statement here. This is the exact same setup that Redux uses to change the state. So whenever you have performance issues, you literally just bring in Redux, you do all of the setup, and you just in the rest of your app just kind of like drops in like as it's supposed to. So Redux is literally, it's just more
Larger scale.
Yeah, exactly, and it's way more robust than like context, but it's everything is exactly the same. Minus the setup, which is a lot. So that's that. And I would honestly, if I was you, I would honestly like go on YouTube and like just look up like a video on like Redux. Just type React Redux, and you're gonna see like how to use it. All right, so that's that. Any questions before we move on to like, so I can show y'all what higher order components could do for your app?
So many, but I'm just gonna let's keep it moving.
Okay. So first, let me quickly look this up. It's called HOC's higher order components. Let me see if W3 School has it. Instead of me trying to look through here, I'm just going to let Google or DuckDuckGo try to find it for me. HOC higher order components. W3 blog. Let me see. Okay. Here we go. All right, so this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna create a higher order component, and you see that this says like this is a number 10 right here. I'm gonna create a component that takes let me see. Let me think of an example. Let's see. Yeah, so I'm gonna create a component that takes like a component, and I'm going to add like let me see. Trying to think of a good example for this. Yeah, anything that goes through the higher order component, the text is going to be blue. I'm orange actually. We're going to make this text orange by using the higher order component. It's not like the best example, but it gives you an idea of how these things even work. So I'm gonna create one here inside of the components folder. And actually I'll create another folder. I'll just name it HOC. This is not like convention or anything like that. I'm just doing like this because I don't really know like how people conventionally do this because I don't use it. It's literally something I'm just doing just to show y'all. So I'm gonna just say HOC example dot JSX. This is gonna be my higher order component. And let me go back here really quick. And actually, I feel like I'm about to. Actually, yeah. Let's not even. Let's. No, we gonna do this. We're gonna do this. So higher order component example. Let me rename this so I can get the name of it. Cool. Let me return just a div for now. I'm gonna export default. Export default HOC example. I'm just saying HOC here, higher order component. Let me import this into app. Import that from components, HOC example. Okay, cool. So we got that here. I'm just gonna put it here really quick, just so we can see it on the page. So that's that. And we see it here, HOC. We imported the component. Okay, cool. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually use it as a higher order component. What I'm gonna do, instead of just like putting it like this, I'm going to do the same thing I see here. And I'm going to wrap test inside of it. How's it doing this? HOC has no corresponding closing tags right here. Wait, that is wrong. Syntax is here. Okay, save that. I want you to notice something though. Now that I just did this, over here, we don't see test anymore. Only thing we see is HOC. And the reason we only see HOC is because the only thing that's going to be rendered is what HOC example renders for you. And what it renders for us is just HOC. Now, in order to get access to that component, we can there's a property here inside of here. Let me actually I think I gotta destructure it. Component like that. This is everything we passed inside of HOC, and I'm hoping I did this the correct way. I don't use this at all. So if I do that, let's see, did that work? No, let me do this. I'm just like guessing at this point. Let me look this up. So render children from component. So React. Okay. There's something I missed. Yeah, children. Yeah, that's what okay, got it. So the children inside of, let me just do this real quick, just to make sure this works before I explain it. All right, cool. So it's here. We see it here. So the children property inside of HOC is the children inside of it. That's literally all of the children inside of this. If I say, hey, hi, whatever, this whole thing is the children inside of it. So we have hey, hi. Here we have the number 2, which was there. Then we have hey, hi. We're literally rendering everything inside of it. That's what children is. So let me just delete this. Only thing I want to render is test. So this is test right here. This number 2. If I look at it from here, we can see that we have an HOC here, higher order component, and inside of it is test. You see that's the child of it. Now, I'm gonna use this higher order component to change the text color of test. Let me go back here. I'm gonna delete HOC because we don't need that. I just want to render the children. And what I'm gonna do is I'll do, let's just give this style of color blue. Actually, I'll do orange so it can like stand out a little bit more. So now we can see that this text is orange. Now the nice thing about this is that we didn't update this inside a test. Literally, literally every single time we want to make some orange text, and I should have named this orange text exactly. I should have named this orange text because that would have been more appropriate. But literally every time we want to change something to orange text, all we gotta do is wrap it inside of this higher order component. This paragraph is going to have orange text because we literally we're adding extra functionality into this component. Does this make sense? What I'm showing here?
Yeah, because it's higher order, you can
Yes.
just you can manage the state of the children that are nested in it.
Right, exactly. So this is exactly what this is doing here. It's just, it takes this value here and is passing it to all of the different children. And we can do the same thing here. See value, hey, or whatever. So we do that here. So we have children here as one prop. The other one was a value property. We can add that here. We say value here. So now everything that uses this has hey after it. Why is this not showing hey? So we have that. Let me delete this because I want to. Oh wait, this one we never even gave this a value. That's why. So let me give this a value as well. So I give this a value of hey, we can see that hey shows up here as well. That's how that works. That's how the provider even works. It passes it all of the different values into the component. That's all it does. But yeah, that's higher order components. Now you know like what it is, and now I'm going to explain to you why it's bad practice. So these have a color of yellow right now, right? If I was to try to debug this, and somebody told me, hey, why is the color of this yellow? The first thing I'm going to do is I'm gonna go inside of, let me delete the other one real quick, just so we can like simplify this. All right, so I know that this, I know that this is inside of the test component. Somebody say, hey, this is orange. Why is that orange? Change that to black. First thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go inside of the test component, and I'm gonna go in here and I'm gonna say, there's no code in here that says that the text is orange. Why is the text orange? So now I have to like, and there's no indication that there is a higher order component being used inside of this component. I want y'all to like really think of this from like a full app perspective. There's not just going to be 2 components inside of an app. There's going to be like 20 components in the app, and there's going to be a whole bunch of folders in there. So now I have to track down why this text is even orange to begin with. And I think, wait, one moment. All right, I'm back. So my bad. So, but yeah, the point is, I don't know where this came from. And this can get really, really bad. Like these higher order components, right now, obviously I can look inside the app and see that there's a higher order component here. But again, this higher order component says nothing about what exactly it's doing. Now I can name this orange text, but like sometimes what it does can't be simplified into like the name of it. But so I would have to actually go inside this higher order component. Like, okay, I go in there and now I see that, okay, that is why the text of that component is orange. But that debugging process could take me a long time to even do. Like it literally can take me like a week or like weeks to try to figure out where this extra bit of functionality came from. And to make it even more complex, there can be a bunch of different higher order components in here. Like right now we're using one, but somebody can wrap a component with inside of a higher order component, which can be inside of a higher order component, which can be inside of a higher order component, which can be inside of another higher order component. Like, and each of these higher order components can give this test different pieces of functionality. Maybe this one changed the color. Maybe this one gave it some type of function that it can use. Maybe this one gave it some kind of property it can use. Maybe this one gave it another property that is using inside of it. And I wouldn't know where to even start debugging to try to figure this out. So this can get really, really complicated when we're using higher order components, and that is why it's bad practice to use it. That makes sense?
Yeah, so like you said, it renders correctly. The computer can read it, but if you didn't build the app yourself and you're coming on the job, you wouldn't be able to read it. It's like when you started your other job,
Right.
You had somebody who wrote some code that was just almost impossible to read. I mean, you figured it out, but it shouldn't have taken, it should have been written in the first place.
Exactly. And it was written like this, the higher order components. That is why it took me so long to try to figure that out. But it's like, it's wasted time, it's wasted money. It's like, why not simplify your app and just not use these at all?
So this is one of the times where it's okay to have a longer function. Yeah, it's okay to have a longer function. So instead of like separating it and a higher order component, you could just put it in test, even though it adds length and to the function or to the test component, it's still easier to debug, so it's acceptable.
Yes, but well, somewhat, yeah. And like where you're going with that was actually where I was going to go afterwards. So these higher order components, right? All of the logic is written inside of the higher order components. That in itself is good because it's separated out the code. Now, what you said was, okay, this is an instance where it's okay to make that component longer. Let's just put all the logic inside of the component. So that is actually not good, because now we're like, we're taking separated code and then we're putting it inside of the component, and to not make it separated. The trade-off is that it's easier to debug. Like, it's easier to read, it's easier to debug. Now, the solution between not putting a lot of code inside of a component and not using higher order components, the solution to that is to use custom React components. This right here, this useReducer, is something that React wrote.
You mean hooks?
Hooks, right? Exactly. Thank you. Custom
Okay.
hooks. Thank you. Thank you. Custom hooks. Thank you. Yeah. this
Yep.
useReducer is something that React wrote. There's code inside of that. There's something inside of use state. There's code inside of use effect. You can write your own hooks. Did I already go over custom hooks already? I'm not even sure if I even did it or not.
Can you go ahead and just do it again just for fun?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll do it for fun. So hold on, let me see. It's 11:29 right now. What I'm gonna do, just to give you a quick break, let's just give like a 10-minute break. And then when we come back, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you how to use a custom hook to do the exact same thing here, to change something to the color of orange. And you'll see like how simple, how much cleaner the code is, and how much more readable, and you'll be able to like see exactly how this even like comes from what or whatever. So, but yeah, we'll give it a 10-minute break. My computer says not 11:29. It's probably like a minute or two off or something like that. But it says 11:29. I'll start at 11:40. Actually, I'll start at 11:40, and then we'll create this hook that changes the color of text to orange.
Cool.
I'm gonna go on break as well. I'll mute myself. I'll mute myself and turn off the camera, and I'll be back. 10 minutes.
Is anybody on here? Oh, okay, yeah, everybody stepped away from the computer.
One is the loneliest number that you'll ever know. two could be as bad as one, but the loneliest number is the number one. I guess to everyone watching the video, if you stick around long enough to after the credits, you get a preview of the next class. So, just tossing that out there to you guys.
We'll start up in like a minute. I'll give people, oh wait, never mind. We still got 4 minutes left. Oh, 2 minutes left now. So we'll start in 2 minutes.
So, question in these 2 minutes. Like I'm building a couple apps, like, and I'm gonna tell you about them offline. But I'm finding myself, like, as I learn new stuff from the class, wanting to go in and change as I'm building it. Should I finish it and then go back and start working on like refactoring, or should I refactor as I'm going? So like, should I complete it and then refactor, or should I just go ahead and refactor as I'm doing it? Because I'm learning a whole lot. Like I've changed it literally from HTML, JavaScript, CSS to when we started doing the React portion, I'm like, oh yeah, I could do React. And so I literally just scrapped it, changed everything to React. Now I'm kind of, I would say I'm back to where I was before, but I think I may have passed myself a little bit in in the old file. And I've done a lot of changing some things because React allows the functionality. But now as I'm learning even more, and I'll tell you exactly what I mean, I kind of want to go back and refactor some things some more. So
Yeah.
Should I build it out, complete it, or refactor as I'm going?
Yes, a short answer is I would refactor as you go, because and I'm gonna say something after this too. But after the let me ask this question before I forget it. Did you save it in? Is it in Bitbucket, or is it just?
Yep.
It is, okay.
The one that I'm working on, I think both of them are saved in. Well, all of them, I think I saved in Bitbucket actually. So I can share that link.
No, it's fine. The reason I asked is because every time you refactor, what I would do is I would create a new branch and say refactoring and adding whatever, like adding whatever to it, like some kind of descriptive. That way you have different, like you have like a progression. Say, okay, I'm learning React. Okay, I started off here. Okay, I'm using it here. Now I'm about to refactor it. Let's create a new branch and start to refactor it in a new branch. So now you're able to compare how you used to do it to how you do it now. And you can see like, you can see that
The progress.
Now, and so the reason to refactor is because like the more stuff I'm teaching y'all, like the more efficient your code is going to be. You want to code in a way where it's clean. So definitely introduce it, and down the line, it's going to actually save you a headache because like without this global state, you have to do a prop drilling. And if you keep doing prop drilling, it's only going to get messier and messier as your code becomes bigger and bigger. What I'm showing is, it helps to scale your app. So you want to definitely refactor it now because it's going to take you longer to refactor it later.
Yeah. And that's the feeling I had. I guess the line of thinking with not refactoring was, okay, I'm already working on it. I don't want to break anything or confuse myself because I am learning new things. So just finish everything, get it working, get it completed, and then go back and refactor it, because that way I'll have like a working version. So I have my version 1.0. Then I can go back and maybe 2.0 it just to make everything cleaner and maybe even make, changes to that like that. Yeah,
it makes sense. It definitely makes sense. But one thing I would say is don't be afraid to like break your code. The only reason, so I broke a few things in this session and I just figured I'm not going to do it because like for the sake of time, but don't be afraid to break it like on your own, because you learn from those things. Yeah. But yeah, let me create these hooks really quick. So I'm gonna create a custom hook, and I'll just put it inside of hooks folder. This hook is gonna change the color to orange. So inside of the hooks folder, I'm gonna create another folder, and I'll name it like use orange color. One thing I want to note, I want y'all to like notice, is that actually I'm not even gonna put this inside of a folder. Let me not do that. Let me just create a file here. It's going to be use orange color.jsx. something I want you to notice that I put the use, this use first. Every React hook by convention uses this use in front of it first. Use state, use effect, use hook, use context. They all use this use here. That create context is not, it's not a hook, it's just a function. But this use right here is used in all of React hooks. So every time you create one, always use this preface it with this. So we have use orange color here. Use orange color is going to be a regular React component. And I know that I told y'all to uppercase React components, but in this case, we're not going to uppercase it because this is just this is the convention with React hooks. So inside of here, what I'm going to take as an input is some text, right? And what I want to return is a div. Actually, I want to return a fragment. Did I show your fragments already? Not even sure if I showed your fragments.
I believe you have.
Okay.
Fragments just don't show the div, essentially.
Right, exactly. Exactly. So I'm returning a fragment. Actually, I'll return a div, actually. I'm gonna return a div because what I want to do is I want to give this style color. This you can't do that with a fragment. You have to do it with an HTML element. And I'm gonna export default it. Export default color. Okay. Cool. So I'm going to hold on. Let me see something. Actually, I'm gonna do this. Hold on. Should I do it this way? Let me give this a span actually, just to keep it instead of just doing a div. Just keep it on the same line if it does go on the same line. Yeah, I'm gonna do this. This is a very juvenile like example of a custom hook. If we have time, I'll throw in like an actual example of how it looks. But just for the sake of completion, instead of throwing test inside of a higher order component like we have, let me just delete. Oh, let me make sure I didn't break nothing first. Okay, I didn't break nothing. So I'm gonna delete this. I'm not even gonna wrap that inside of there. So this should go back to regular black text, and it shouldn't say hey, like I said before. So it's just black text. Now I'm gonna use the custom hook to change the color. I'm gonna let me see inside of text. So directly inside of text. Remember my example was I go inside of text and I don't see any reference to like why the text changed. But in here we're gonna actually let me see. We're gonna actually what's it called? See how it changed. So what I'm gonna do in here is I'm gonna say element here, elements, and I'm naming this capital because this is gonna be an HTML element. We can see that inside of where is it hooks. This returns an HTML element, and that's basically what I'm trying to reference right now. So element, and you'll see how this comes into play. I'm gonna use context, right? And let me bring this in first. Import.
Okay, I was just gonna ask that.
Yeah, and I could probably just use React to do it for me. Let me see. Use orange color. Okay, perfect. All right, so I imported that. What this took was some text right there. So I'm gonna pass in some text. The text I want to pass in is this here. We can see that this returned an HTML element, which was this. So that is going to be stored inside of this this variable right here. So what I'm gonna do instead of this is I'm just going to render the element like that. So I save this, go back here. Did a refresh? Oh, I have it.
Is it because element is not a function?
See.
Like,
Oh, that's it. Yeah, that was it. So element was in the variable. I don't have to use it like the HTML. I just got to drop it in just like a regular variable, which is inside of these curly brackets. This is why I like knowing how React works helps, because it's like you start to solve these problems that you run into. But either way, we can see that it has orange text now. Literally, anything I pass in here is going to have orange text. Why is it highlighted like that? Anything I pass into this use color hook is going to have orange text, and we can see that we were able to complete the goal, which was to separate the logic into a different app, and we're explicitly using that functionality. So now when we debug, we know exactly why that text is orange. So what I'm about to do now is I'm gonna use this this custom hook the correct way. Normally we don't return HTML. We return like variables, and those variables like do certain things. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use this a different way. I'll say, let me put this back. Actually, let's see, let me put this back. Span like that. This guy go inside of double quotes. Let me get rid of this for now. Get rid of that and put that back how it was. And now it's back to being blue. We're not even using the use context hook. The way we use these custom hooks, we actually have to the reason we use it is to like we could use it how I just did it, but generally people use state inside of these custom hooks, and I'll show you like how that looks. I'll say color here, right? And I'll say, let me see, set color, and I'm gonna use a use state hook in here. The default color, I'm gonna just name it orange. That is not orange. Right? And I'm going to actually return from here the color and the ability to set the color like that. This is a very oversimplified example. Actually, let me make this, let me see, set color. I'm gonna say number. Let me actually I'm gonna do set color. This is over simplified because normally there's like logic in between. Like we can do like other stuff in here. Actually, let me actually do it. Let me actually do an example. Let me do this the right way. And I'll say set color function. What I'm gonna do is do something that's going to look a little bit silly, but I'm going to return this set color function. I'm not even going to return this set color here. What I'm gonna say is let's see, return app, and what this is going to do is this is going to take a color here, right? And that color is we're gonna have a few if conditions. It's gonna look real like silly. So if the color is orange, if the color that you pass into this is orange, we're gonna do. I'm trying to think. Would this even be helpful? Set color.
You want to return the name of the color or console.log the color or something like that?
You know what? Yeah, let's just do it. Let's do that actually. Console log color. Thank you. That's actually really good. Really good example. Better than what I was going to do before. So every time we set the color, we want to log the color. So we're gonna okay, set color. So we're returning this. Let's return an object actually. Return an object. We're gonna return an object. We can turn an array. We can turn whatever we want. We're gonna return this object. The key here is gonna be color. The value is gonna be the color that comes from this use state here. And the key for this one is gonna be set. Let me just name it. Let me actually name it. Actually, I'll just leave it the same. The key and value is the same. The value is this function right here. Every time we call this function, we have to pass in the color. Now that color is going to be logged to the console, and this color variable right here is going to be updated because we're using set color here, right here. So by updating this color, the color that's returned from this custom hook is going to be updated as well. So the extra piece of functionality we get is to be able to log the colors to the console. That's what this does for us. So I'm going to start a test, and I'm going to pull in this use orange color hook right here. So we're not even going to pass in anything into here like we did before. Only thing we're going to do is we're going to destructure these two things out of it. We're going to destructure these two things here. I want y'all to notice, like, start to really realize, like, actually, let me do this the same way we did it with like use state. I'm gonna use it inside of I'm gonna do it within an array. I want you to notice that this is literally the exact same setup we use with use state. You start to see like how use state was actually built, and like, we're pulling out two different things. So now that we have the ability, now that we have the color, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do give this a key and property a color. So whatever color we set it to, that's what this is going to turn into because it's set. It's going to be set by this. And also I'm going to give this a button here. And this button, what this is going to do is it's going to set the color. Set color. Do this on click. On click. And whenever we click this, we're going to set color. Call set random color. I'm about to create set random color in a minute right now. So set random. Why is it not auto completing for me? Set random color. Set random color. What that's going to do is it's going to choose a random color from an array, and then it's going to call this set color function whenever it chooses that random color. So let me just set this up real quick. I'll just say index equals to math dot random. Let's do multiply by, and just create a colors array. I'll say red, blue, green, red, blue, green. This is going to do colors dot length, and then do a math dot floor on that so that we get a random index from that math dot floor. Okay, and we're going to set the color to a random color inside of this array every time we press that set color button. That's what that's going to do for us. And I press this button, you can see that the color is changing. Now, that functionality is all inside of that hook. So literally we can reuse that hook anywhere we want, and we have access to a function that sets the color of the text. That's an example of a custom hook, and a more explicit way of setting a color for something without making it too hard to debug. Questions on this? So no questions. Let me stop so we're at time. So we'll just end the class now. Let me just stop the recording really quick.